Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Tisha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have an awesome guest who is making significant strides in the biopharmaceutical sector. His name is Shuja. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Biopharma Informatic. With over 14 years of experience, he leads a clinical research investigator network that provides comprehensive clinical trial management services. Shuja, welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you here today. Can you tell us more about Biopharma Informatic and the vital work that you're doing in clinical research?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Biopharma Informatic, we are a clinical research site network. There's many terms out there in the industry for it. Essentially, they're all doing the same thing. A little bit about our company. It was started 15 years ago. We started off with a single office. A physician was kind enough to let us start in his office. And over the course of last 15 years, we've been able to grow across 9 states. And now we have around 32 locations. And what we do is very interesting. We work with pharmaceutical companies to bring new medications to market. So we conduct the clinical trials to assess if they're safe, if they're effective, and how they compare to other treatments that are out there. And the most interesting part about this is that patients or our community members who may not have access to clinical trials or have access to even basic healthcare through clinical trials, they get access to new medications, free treatment, free doctor's visits as well. So it's a little bit about what we do, but excited to join you on this and tell you guys more about it.
So let's jump right on in. I'd love to know what you believe the most critical elements for organizations to succeed when they're conducting clinical trials, especially in today's landscape. Can you share some of your insights on this?
I think the first thing is that number one thing is, we have to be focused on what's most important, which is the patients. So, it's always important to make sure you put yourself in the patient's shoes and make the process as easy for them as possible. So something simple as, our online advertisement, I've always wanted to have the Amazon approach where we're all on our phones and we need to buy something and we swipe and within 24 hours, it's in our doorstep. So same approach, making it as easy for the patients, making it convenient for them, making sure that they're well informed about what they're doing and not just what they're doing, but why they're doing. I think the why in this is very important.
I agree. I think that if more people took time to dig into the why, then actually they'd have better outcomes in general, right? Because you know exactly why you're attempting to do something. Can you go a little bit deeper on that? I'd love to make a little bit more of a connection. You just started to do it on. So there's patient in your business, customer in another business, but putting the customer or the patient first is so critical. Can you tell me more about some of the decisions that you're making on a day-to-day basis to do that?
I always talk about it that, it starts from choosing the right trial. If it's not a trial that I would put my own family members, I don't want to be conducting a trial like that because it's probably not something that I myself am very confident about. So I think it starts off with choosing the right trial. And then again, from there, putting the patients first. We do so many different things. Arranging transportation. So if it's a trial that they're participating in, being in Houston, there is public transportation here, but I mean it's almost non-existent. Even if you take a bus, you might still have to walk a good 20 minutes to the nearest bus stop. So, we have a partnership with Uber Health where we're picking up patients from their houses, bringing them to our research centers or the imaging center, wherever that they need to go. Patient compensation, there's a little bit in clinical research where patients get compensated for their time and travel, but there's extra needs as well. Sometimes they're here for a long time. So making sure that, they are comfortable. If they're here at our clinics for a long time, lunch, snacks, water, just making them feel at home. And it sounds very elementary, but treating them like humans. They're not just a number. At the end of the day, when you talk about clients, when you talk about anything that helps you and your business, I think in this it's a little bit different. It's not just about ticking off check boxes. It's just making really sure that you're connecting with them, giving them a good experience. And at the end of the day, I'm sure you have heard, or a lot of people who may not necessarily be too familiar with clinical research. What's the first thing that comes up? I'm not a guinea pig. I don't want to be tested on. The why is very important. Why are we asking you to do this? Why should you participate in this trial? You have diabetes. If you have diabetes, maybe your children may have diabetes. Sure, why? Do you want your children to suffer from everything that you are suffering from? No. Okay, well, this is your chance to contribute to the advancement of medicine. So, a lot of these different things, a lot of decisions happen on a daily basis that, sometimes, there's patients coming in from a very far distance, and just the Uber alone is going to cost us more, than what it usually does, 200, $300 just to get them to our site. Yes, that's a decision you have to make. That fine, we'll maybe make a little bit less money, but at the end of the day, it serves in the greater good of what we're trying to do, is which is again expanding the access of clinical trials, getting that access to more people, and making sure if there's a qualified person that is qualifying for a trial and is interested in the trial, then I think it's our responsibility to do whatever it takes to provide that platform for them.
This idea that you need to qualify the circumstances to create confidence, I think is something that stands out. And again, I'm talking about in the context of clinical trial management and in the context of a business. Our other listeners, these are things they can pick up from, that in order to instill this confidence, there is this qualification. But I really, really loved your talking about the patient's circumstances, right? Because patients, customers, their circumstances, the things that we don't always know do matter. You talked about transportation as one of those things. I mean, these are those things that can make or break the situation, because no transportation, I might not even get there. So I might not be a part of saving not only my life, but someone else's in the future, because of very powerful work you do. But I even think that in business in general, if we don't understand the circumstances of our customers, then we also might miss the opportunity to actually give them something of true value. So these are really, really good. You also talked about incentivizing. There has to be valuable incentives for customers too. Like, you got to think about, what does a valuable incentive actually look like? Your principles that you have to follow for a successful clinical trial seem like some good little
Yeah, I would
nuggets.
say, it's not a incentive, right? At the end of the day, we're not incentivizing anybody to join a clinical trial. We're making the process easier. We're making the process feasible. If somebody is, coming to our clinic for a 3-hour visit, that means that they're missing on 3 hours of work. That means they're missing 3 hours of family time. That means they're taking 3 hours away from their day to come and participate in this clinical trial. So at the end of the day, at least, and again, that's something I'm a big advocate about. I don't think in our industry, patients are getting compensated enough for their participation in clinical trials, and our hands are tied in there, because that is not mandated by us. That is mandated by the sponsors. That is mandated by the institutional review boards on how much we can pay the subjects. But I think individuals taking out time, volunteering themselves, they are noble heroes, and they need to be compensated accordingly as well. Which again, I hope with time, as more people advocate for this, I hope in the future that the compensation is more for them, so more and more patients and people participate in clinical trials as well.
Can you share some of your insights on the importance of aligning clinical trial management strategies with the needs of healthcare organizations and maybe physicians? So, what types of decisions do you find yourself making that directly impact the success of trials and the overall research process?
Well, there's so many different things, So from a healthcare's perspective, partnering up with the physicians right now, at the end of the day, physicians are the captains of the ship. They are the folks that have the most trust with the patients. And I'm sure you've heard of it. Folks that are not in the healthcare industry, they may not know about it. It's not false that, doctors make a lot of money, which yes, they do. But again, a lot of effort goes behind that as well. It's a lot more schooling than a lot of us do, a lot of training that they have to go through, a lot of responsibility that they carry. So, they've been through a lot. They do get compensated fairly well, but I think they do a lot of work. So when, insurances cut the rates, their reimbursements go down, the practice expenses don't go down with it. Revenue is going down, expenses are going up. So making the decision on which physician to work with, business is important, but choosing the right physician who's not just doing it for the monetary reason. Yes, monetary gains are part of it, but the decision to partner up with the right physicians, the right organizations that have the right core values of why they want to do research. I'm a firm believer that if you are pursuing excellence, you will always make money. Physicians who want to do it for the right reasons, and if you can support their clinics, every private clinic is a small business. They have bills, they have rent, they have salaries to pay. So if you can contribute to that, the physicians are more motivated as well. And it goes down to finding the right physician and partnering up with the right physician. A lot of different trials, we have to, it's a business decision where if we're going to make $100, sometimes we make 70 because we have invested 30 more dollars from our side into different activities, a lot of different trials just to make sure that we're choosing the right candidates for the trial. We do so much preliminary work that the sponsors don't compensate us for our fatty liver trials. We'll do free fibroscans, a service that a lot of people or practices charge for, and we offer that free for everyone. Why? Because we want more and more people to know about it, the importance of it. And then from a business perspective, yes, it costs us money, and if we do 100 of them, maybe three of them give us the ROI and the other 90 don't. But that's a business decision that we do, just again making that access for everyone, making sure that we're reaching the right people. A lot of pre-screening activities that don't often get compensated for, a lot of trainings, time spent with physicians, time spent in physician offices, just in the hopes of making sure that we are finding the right candidate, because again the data that we are collecting is going to define the future of medicine. So it's a big responsibility that we have as well. We won't be doing justice for what we have been given the opportunity to do if we don't do it the right way. So a lot of these decisions you have to take, and I always say that as a business owner, as decision makers, you can't just be looking at the short term gains. It's not just what I'm going to make today. It's more about what is going to create better processes, what is going to serve the business, the company, all the individuals in it just now, but 5 years, 10 years, what is going to give us that long term vision. Short term is easy, but not short term. You want to create any significant value. Yes, you may make more money today, tomorrow, in the next week, in the next month, in the next year, but in order to be a company, a business that survives over a long term, that you can grow, you have to have a long term vision, and that requires more investment on a daily basis.
It also sounds like you're applying your values across this process. Your values actually end up leading versus just the monetary gain. I think that's really good.
That's something that's missing in healthcare, right? Especially as a lot of non-medical or private equity banking firms have entered healthcare. It's truly become about the bottom line. It might offend a lot of people, but we're in the healthcare business, right? Where care is a part of health, and I think that unfortunately, in a lot of cases, especially with large organizations where you have a lot of non-medical, and I'm not, again, I have a business background, but I think just growing up in a healthcare environment, I am patient centric. I always put the patients first. And unfortunately, when millions or billions of dollars are involved, oftentimes the care part of it is left behind and it's just about the bottom line.
We did an event called Health Outcomes here and heard this from people up and down that the patient is like at the bottom of the totem pole, right? And it's really driven a lot by money. So of course you have insurance companies at the top, and then you go down, and even doctors. You spoke about it earlier, but I often feel terrible for doctors because they don't have as much control as you'd like them to have over patient outcomes. And so ideally, companies like yours come in and start maybe even finding solutions in clinical trials. It's one area.
One thing, I would love to touch up, yeah, I would love to touch upon is, one of something that I'm a very big advocate about is clinical trial as a long-term care option.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I mean, we have some interesting case studies where we had a trial. It was a colorectal cancer screening trial where this company was trying to see if their product um, could detect early colon cancer. So we had to find subjects who were due for their screening colonoscopies, and this sponsor was kind enough that they allowed us to cover colonoscopies for couple of patients. I would say probably 50, 70 patients or so per location. Through different channels, we had people that applied for the trial, and they didn't have insurance. So how would they get a colonoscopy? And anybody 45, 50 or above should be getting a colonoscopy. And a lot of these people couldn't because A, they didn't have insurance. Otherwise, out of pocket, it cost, 1,500, 1,800, $2,000.
Mm,
So you
sounds expensive.
yeah, utilizing
Yeah.
clinical research as a long-term care option, these people were able to get free colonoscopies just because they were part of the clinical trial. Or another one where, it was a long-term cardiovascular outcome trial where it started almost, I think maybe, I can't remember, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we had several patients who came through our company and they didn't have insurance. They qualified for the trial until this date. They don't, I don't know if they still have don't have insurance. At that time, they didn't have insurance, and they were able to participate in the trial. They were seen by our cardiologists. They got free labs, free doctor's visits, free medicine through the clinical trial. And without any insurance, they were able to get some care. So I think clinical research can play a huge part in providing healthcare services to all. Now, it may not be as good, as detailed as, somebody with a really good insurance. We have to be realistic. Yes, we all want to do good. We all want everybody to have the best care coverage, but it's also, what's feasible and what's possible as well. And I think this is a happy balance between what is feasible and what can be done as well. And I think if we can spread the message of clinical research more, have it more embedded into our communities, I think more and more communities can benefit from it.
This is great. Can we talk a little bit? Can we shift gears a little bit now and talk about your leadership? Can we talk about how managing a diverse network of research centers, what kind of strategies do you employ to actually build a culture of quality and continuous improvement within your team? And I want you to talk about it from like a decision forward lens. What are some of the things that you're doing?
I think the answer is very simple: empowering others. At the end of the day, if we have any business owner, leader in any organization, and that's something, I talk about in our last quarterly meeting. I've asked our team within every department for our next quarterly meeting, I want each one of our leaders to identify another leader within their respective departments. At the end of the day, I think there would be nothing without the team that we have.
Oh, come on.
Um,
You
you know,
guys celebrate your boss right now. He's awesome. He's amazing. He just said he would be nothing without you. It sounds like a song. Let's go.
that's actually true. Yes, I have a lot of responsibility. As a business owner, there's pros and cons for everything. Having the responsibility to making sure that salaries go out every 2 weeks, everybody is taken care of. All of that, I think, is a big responsibility. But I think a lot of the hard work is done by the individual team members, and I think empowering them, the folks that are doing, we all have 8 to 10 hours in a day, and we all can be at maximum. Unless AI changes that in the future, which again, I don't have any doubts that it will, but for now, we're all in one place at one time. So you have to empower people in their respective positions for them to make the decisions, for them to not just make the decisions, but be accountable for those decisions as well.
That's good. Now tell me what's hard about it though. So you're doing it, but what's difficult?
What's difficult about it is making sure that you're trusting the right people, because that doesn't happen. That takes a long time. It takes a lot of development. It takes a lot of trust as well. Second thing is obviously having checks and balances and making sure that you are available if they want to discuss something. You are available to offer your insight. You're there to offer them your experience and have those discussions with them as well. So they do feel supported. They do feel confident when they're making those decisions as well. But the thing is about making decisions that when you're making them, you don't know if it's the right or the wrong decision. You only find that out later. So instilling that belief in everybody, I think it's very difficult because everybody is hesitant, right? When you're making a decision, you don't know, and just like I don't know, and I'm very open about that, right?
Right.
People think that if you are a leader, you're a CEO, you're leading a very large organization, you know it all. I would like to tell everyone that that's not true. Not of the people, I would say, just to be very open and honest, don't know everything, and it's okay to not know everything. We all are learning as we go, and just instilling that belief that it's okay to make mistakes. Only thing I say is just don't make the same mistakes over and over. When you make new mistakes, you learn from them, and that's
That's
growth
right.
for the organization. But I think that's the most difficult part about it is, being able to, yes, they can take accountability, they can take responsibility, but ultimately, if you are the business owner, at the end of the day, it's going to fall on you. So you want to make sure that you have the right leaders, you have the right people in the right places, but then empower them to make the decisions so they grow as well. Because yes, month 1, month 3, month 6 may be tough, but year 2, year 3 is going to be a lot better for that.
That's right. As that knowledge grows, I think one thing that I really appreciate about what you're saying is none of us knows the future, right? And as leaders, we all have to remember that, yep, we can for sure use different bits of our experience. We can use different data and information in order to help guide us through decision making, but the true outcome is only the true outcome, and it only happens when it's in the past. So
That's true.
really, really, really good guiding insight there. All right, let's go to my favorite section here. So this is where we sort of explore your decision-making style through a little persona assessment. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and the 4 questions you're intended to say that between 0 and 100% you resonate with how that question is asked. Each one of the questions represents a persona, a way of asking the question. There'll be 4 questions and you only get up to 100%. So I want you to keep track of where you are on the 100%. Okay, here we go. Here's your first question. So we're considering a new clinical trial strategy. How are we going to ensure that it aligns with our core values and enhances the research experience for physicians?
Probably, I would say, in terms of the physicians, I would say probably around 60%.
Okay, so that's going to be 60%. Okay, keep track. So that is called a feeler persona, largely gut guided, and expertise and experience. I say gut and experience go hand in hand in a lot of cases. Okay, so 60% feeler. That only leaves you with 40%. Keep that in mind. You still got 3 questions to go. Here's your second one. Hey, so we're reflecting on last year's clinical initiatives. What specific trends or insights have we uncovered that can significantly influence our next strategies?
Oh, should have saved a lot of percentages.
You can change them. You can
Yeah, let's
change
go.
them.
Let's make the other one 30, and let's put 30 towards. Let's put 40 towards this one.
Okay, so that is a planner. All right, so now that leaves you with, I think that leaves you 30% left so
30%.
far, right? And you've got 2 more. So you currently are 30% feeler and 40% planner. Here's your next one. So we're evaluating our previous clinical trials. What key lessons have we learned that have fundamentally changed our decision-making process?
So looking at a previous trial and the experiences learned from it, I don't think 100% is enough for this. I think this thing is I don't think you have the percentages right. Yeah, I would probably put. I guess if I have 30 to play around with, then I don't know what the number 4 is going to be, but I'll put 15 towards this then.
Okay, let's go
They're all
15.
equally important, right? All 3 of the things that you have talked about, they all are very important. Sometimes you have the data, sometimes you don't have the data. So when you don't have the data, you have to make the decisions based on your gut. Learning from previous experiences is very important, as I talked about, right? Let's not make the same mistake over and over again. Let's learn from our previous mistakes. So I think maybe we should have done like 150% or 200.
No, or the idea is that you're making balanced decisions, and
Yeah.
that's a good thing. You're
Okay, that's a better
there.
way of putting it.
Yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. Here's your last one. So we're formulating a new trial strategy. What specific data points are we going to rely on to validate our decisions?
Yeah, our previous track record, what we have done in the previous trials, so many different positions or ways that you can put it within our business, because there are so many different things, right? It's like choosing a trial, choosing a recruitment strategy, like how are we going to recruit patients for this trial, right? That's completely different from choosing the trial itself. So I think it's just I still think you should have given me more percentages on it, but I like it. I might incorporate this somehow in what I do in our meetings as well, but I like it. Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so that makes you 30% feeler, 40% planner, 15% counter, and 15% data driver. You might mix those up at any given time, depending upon the circumstance.
A lot of the decisions I make are gut feeling decisions. I'll make a lot of decisions on the spot, on the fly. Bottom line for me is you don't know if the decision is right or wrong. So I do make a lot of decisions as I go along based on my gut feeling, based on what I think is the right thing at that time. So I think I would probably put it as 25% each. But again, a lot of my decisions are based on my gut feeling and what I think it is. And learning from those. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're right. When they're right, it pays off. When they're wrong, then it's a lesson to be learned, and there's no losses.
No losses whatsoever. So you got the whole point. Even coming up to the end and saying 25% all. Like I said, balancing is everything. So this is great. So before we close out, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
Actually, it's a request. If you could give one piece of advice to aspiring leaders in clinical research management, what would it be?
I think it would go back to thinking about always be focused on growth. When you have a growth mindset, you don't look at short term gains. You don't look at small wins. You always have the big wins in your mind. You always have the long term vision, and that is always going to serve the patients the best. It's always going to serve your team members the best, because you're not just looking at today or tomorrow. You're looking at next year or the year after. Some people may disagree with it, that hey, that's going to kill our profits. I would rather take 10% less every year and have that grown over the year, then make more this year and then have that decline. And we're seeing that in our industry where a lot of folks went for short-term gains, they hired a lot of people, and now there's so many layoffs, right? So just setting that long-term vision is making, it's a lot of responsibility. If you have X amount of employees in your office, in your company, that's X amount of households that are relying on your decision. So I think that brings a lot of responsibility and accountability for every decision that you take, because yes, for you it might just be a number on your payroll sheet, but for somebody, that's their electric bill, that's their food bill, that's children's daycare fee. So that's a lot of responsibility. So just be mindful of the daily decisions that you make and keep that growth mindset, because if you have that growth mindset, then every individual, every productive, let me be very specific about that, because it's also, it goes both ways. As an employer, you have responsibilities, and as employee as well, productivity is very important, because you can't carry dead weight. So as long as everybody is carrying their own weight, they all have the common goal in mind, and they all are striving for their personal growths as well. I think all in all, that's the secret sauce for success. And we're I can't say that we've seen it, but we're definitely striving towards it. And again, 1% better every day. So that's what we strive for, and making sure that we're moving in the right direction. Um, Processes are right, and we have a long-term vision in mind that we're striving towards every day.
Constant forward motion. That is good stuff. Thank you so much for that advice. And it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Your expertise in this particular space is actually inspirational. And the way that you've described how much you care about people is inspirational. Can you share with our listeners where they can learn more about you and about Biopharma Informatic?
Yeah. So our website is www.biopharmainfo.net. That's BIOPHARMA info.net. I'm on LinkedIn, so you guys can look me up on LinkedIn as well. Feel free to connect with me. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Look us up on we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, so we're on all social media. So I would encourage everyone to look us up, and not just us, just learn more about clinical research. It's not just about what Biopharma is doing. There's a lot of great companies. There's a lot of independent sites. There's a lot of good people doing a lot of great work in our industry. So look us up, look up the industry. When you get sick and you get a medicine and doctor prescribes you something and you're able to go to CVS and get it quickly, think about how it got there. It got there because of the clinical trials that a lot of folks like yourselves or the listeners that you have participated in. And that's how you're able to quickly recover from any illness. So it's a great industry. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe, rate, share it with your network. Let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.